Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is B, and for this video, we are going to be going through all the books I am in the middle of. Welcome to my first reading vlog. We are going to be going through and doing a little reading vlog of all the books I'm in the middle of. I'm a mood reader, so oftentimes we'll just crave a new book. Like I'll get halfway through another book and I'm like, I want a different vibe now. And that's kind of what's been happening over the past like week, 2 weeks now. So I'm in the middle of 4 books and it's a problem. One of them is the finale of a series that's like my favorite series I've ever read. So I don't know how I haven't just binged it in one sitting, but this is the predicament we're in. I'm already having the inkling where I want to read another book and get a different vibe. This video is gonna be like a carrot for me to finish these books. For the first book we have Happy Place by Emily Henry, and I'm showing it to you on my iPad because I'm actually reading the ebook on Libby. I somehow was able to get it from the library. I'm about 57% of the way through this book and I'm loving it. It has like an undertone of romance, but let me just tell you what the book is about. So basically you have this group of friends and every summer they go to like a beach house. It is somewhere on like the East Coast, and this group of friends, there's 6 of them, they all go together each year for like a week. Our 2 main characters, Harriet and Wynn, they have been engaged. They've been a couple for a long time and they have actually broken up but haven't told anybody in this friend group that they have broken up. And they don't really want to ruin the vibe of the experience for everybody else. You have Harriet and Wynn who haven't talked in like, I think at least a few months, and we're slowly figuring out why they broke up, and they're working through their personal grievances with each other while having to pretend that they are still together. So it has like a fake dating trope between a couple that was together. I really love the friend group. The friend group is so much fun. All the characters are so distinct and I really enjoy it. So I'm really looking forward to finishing this one. The next book that I'm trying to get through right now is She Who Became the Sun. That sounded negative. I really like this book. It's just really politic heavy. 1300s China, so ancient China. Follow this character. She's living in poverty at the beginning of the book, and a group of bandits comes in, and after a drought, like there's no food available, so there's a lot of bandits going around like killing people and taking their food stocks and water reserves and stuff. This bandit group comes in and kills her father. It's just her and her older brother. Well, her older brother ends up succumbing to grief and he passes away, and so she decides that she's going to take his fate because a fortune teller told him that he would achieve greatness. So it kind of gives Mulan vibes like that, and you follow her on her journey, and she goes to a monastery and becomes a monk, and that's about all I can say. That's like what the cover says. About 50-something% of the way through this too. It's like 400 and some pages, but like I said, it's heavy in politics, so it feels longer than that, and it's a lot to digest. There's a lot of names, a lot of places you have to remember. And I tried reading this a couple of years ago and I got like maybe 80 pages in and I didn't keep reading it, but now like my interests lie with this type of book. I'm really excited to finish this. There is a sequel to it and I would be interested in getting that too after I see what the conclusion of this one is. There may be a cliffhanger, I'm not sure, but yeah, so that's the second book. The third book, which this may break a lot of hearts, I'm not really loving this book and I can't really explain why, but it is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This one is like a fairy regency story, and there's this girl named Dora, and when she was younger, Dora was attacked by a fae and the fae took half of her soul. So she doesn't really interact with the world the same as other people. Her emotions are suppressed. She knows what she should be feeling and should be thinking, but she doesn't actually naturally feel those things now that half of her soul is gone. So we're just going through the Regency era. They're trying to find suitable partners and that sort of thing. That's like the gist of it that I've read so far. I'm only like 25% of the way through this. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna keep trying because I've heard only great things, and I think right now it could just be a slow start. I think I'm just having a slow start. I don't really care about the characters yet. I'm interested vaguely, but I'm gonna get until 100 pages in, and then if I don't like it, I'm just gonna DNF it, sadly. But this was on my TBR for April, so I'm gonna try to make it through it. And the last book I am in the middle of, I'm probably like 47-50% of the way through this book. It's the last of a huge series that I binge read. So I'm really surprised that I didn't just jump on this right away. I think I got like burnout from it because I did read 7 books like back to back to back this series, and it was just a lot to absorb. But it is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas. This is the last book of the Throne of Glass series, which is my favorite series of all time. About half of this book left. I will say I'm on page 450 of this. I stopped reading it like November So it's been like 5 or 6 months ago last time I read this. I do remember a lot. It'll take me a second to get back into it, but it's just a lot. The characters are going through it. Like the final battle, the win or lose scene, I guess, is coming, and I'm like really nervous about it. The first 450 pages, I have probably cried 20 times. Relief tears or characters coming out of the woodwork that we haven't seen in a long time. It just got me. I think like the found family really gets me in this, so I just like cry all the time. So there's gonna be videos of me crying on the internet. So that's the fourth and final book that we are going to be reading, plus Happy Place by Emily Henry, for this reading vlog. Good morning, it is the next day. I stayed up until 2 a.m. I finished She Who Became the Sun. I absolutely loved this. The end got like Game of Thrones style. Prepare to be devastated if you read this book. Some things I really liked about this book. Politics is very complex. There is a lot of room for betrayals. The history, which I don't know a lot about China's ancient history, but this feels like a lot of it was pulled from real life themes or like real things that were happening, even if individual stories were fictionalized. It felt like there was a lot of history present here that was important. He's gonna keep doing this, and I gotta talk to the camera. Is that okay? All the characters were so complex and well developed in this story. Like the ones that were terrible people, you were kind of either rooting for them or you understood their actions even if you didn't agree with them, which I thought was really well done. The end of this book, it literally got me. I also really loved the representation in this book. There's a lot of LGBTQ plus representation in this, as well as conversations about gender identity and sexual identity and gender roles. It pulled on your heartstrings a little bit. There was like one quote that just absolutely, I'm gonna find it. How could her body be a woman's body if it didn't house a woman? And I really thought that that was a really good quote to read to you to kind of show how gender identity, sexual identity, gender dysphoria were talked about. You really got to understand the characters well, their journey through their own identities, whether it be the ones I just listed or as a father, as a son, as an emperor, or one character in this book that is called the Prince of Radiance. So you really got to understand how religious leaders can be manipulated even if they are innocent. In this case, there's a fantastical element to it and the person is very innocent. There's a lot of deep conversations about the society that is happening in this novel. I really describe it very well. I described like what was on the cover, but another thing I wanted to add, it follows like two different, there's like a dynasty is Mongolian. They're trying to keep their rule over China. You have a rebel group called the Red Turbans who are fighting. That's like the premise of this. The thing with war is one side wins, but on the way to winning, they are still gonna experience losses. Talks about the depths of war and what that does. It's represented in this book so well. That's a very relevant topic. I'm gonna find some more quotes. The very first opening line of this book, the village lay flattened under the sun like a defeated dog that has given up on finding shade. This book is full of similes like that. She clung to life because it seemed to have value, even if only to her, but when she thought about it, she had no idea why. Didn't seem fair that while others earned their suffering for pleasure, she earned hers for nothing more than wanting to live. So that was She Who Became the Sun. I think the next book I'm going to read is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I'm kind of in the mood for a contemporary setting now that I just read this hefty historical fantasy setting, and I'm really eager to get back to Harriet and Win and see how this book ends. I've heard it's very sad. Let's get into Happy Place by Emily Henry. Finished it. I just finished Happy Place, and wow. I already gave a summary of what this book was about. I was about halfway through when I started reading today. I just sat and read the rest in one sitting. Emily Henry does a great mix of romance and friendships and happiness and what it means to be happy and what a home really is, how life decisions can alter your life in ways that you wouldn't have expected, some for better, some for worse. Wow, I just really love this. How friendships and people change over time and how complex lives can be and how love will overcome it all. Time keeps moving on, but so can friendships, that they can morph and blend, and just relationships in general. And I'm gonna try not to cry. I related so much to Harriet. Her questions about life and what it means to be happy and making decisions that seemed impressive. I just really understood that. I actually read this book at a perfect time in my life. That sounded scary. There's just a lot of big changes happening in my life right now. I've never read an Emily Henry before, and I feel like that was the one I needed to read. So after the emotional wreckage of Happy Place by Emily Henry, because that was such a good book, and She Who Became the Sun was such a good book, that I want to put this on pause. I'm not going to hard DNF this, it's a soft DNF. Taking the bookmark out, I was 75 pages in, so I just don't want to spend time on a book that doesn't feel like it's going to blow my mind right now after following those two, if not 5 stars, I haven't rated them yet, close to 5-star read. So that leaves one book left, the big one. I made it through Kingdom of Ash. I'm trying to gather my thoughts because I sat and read the last 500 or so pages I needed to read in one sitting. And as you saw, I had to cut so many clips out, but I literally cried probably 20 more times in the second half of the book. Dorian and Chaol, I would die for both of them. Dorian is probably my favorite character. What he goes through throughout the whole series, monumental. Like, it makes so much sense what happens to him and how he ends up the way that he is. I can't go into detail about this one because it is book number 8. I may have a little section, I'll make sure I give a warning. I'll be like, hey, skip to this time, where I just point out some things that really made me cry. Generally speaking, no spoilers right now. Sacrifices that were made in this were crazy. There were some choices made. SJM made some choices That's all I'm gonna say. I do have some critiques of this book. I felt like the war, that's not a spoiler. If you're that far in the series, you know what's gonna happen, but the war that is in this book lasts so long. It's 1,000 pages. I guarantee 750 of these pages are war scenes. And we would jump back and forth between, you know, different groups. And there was one group where I felt like she just kept putting scenes in. They were kind of like filler, where I felt like, oh my gosh, we just keep getting scenes of them doing the same thing over and over again in between these other groups and their POVs that are actually moving the plot along. So I felt like that was a little weak. I also felt like there was one major plot point that if you've read this series, we were all waiting for it. Okay, I felt like it was an easy cop-out. It was one of those things where throughout this whole series, the main character makes choices off screen that we don't know anything about. At times, it worked, and then a lot of the other times it felt like it was an easy plot cop-out type thing. Sometimes it did feel like it was for shock factor and it worked well and that it went well with how the character was, but I felt like there was one time where it happened in this book where I thought, this is one time where it shouldn't have happened. We should have seen this scheming because it was so monumental. We all waited for this moment. There were so many moments when I cried, and it was because it was a full circle moment. I kept crying because of that, because all the characters meant so much to me. I'm gonna go into spoilers right here, so skip to this. Did you skip? If you're still here, I'm gonna start talking spoilers. The weak plot point I talked about earlier specifically was Maeve's death. I felt like that was a little weak. You know how you have like Lucien and Rowan and Lorcan under Maeve's power. Aelin like tricks them or whatever, or tricks her, and the guys are in on it. At least Rowan's in. I felt like that was just super weak. I mean, I loved it because of how she died, like who prompted it. The fact that all that was schemed and planned off page felt weak, especially since Aelin had sacrificed her powers. She was speaking with the gods. And the whole book we were waiting for that huge fire blast moment, right? Take out all of Morath, all the Valg, Maeve, and it just didn't happen, which I thought was kind of brilliant. We were waiting for it the whole series, right? We're just, as soon as we kind of caught on to what the overarching plot was, we were waiting for it. And for her to lose her powers and go through that, I thought that was such a plot twist that I never would have seen coming. Speaking of that scene with the gods, Elena's death, they did her so dirty. I cried during that scene. I cried when the 13 were sacrificed. They did the yielding. It was awesome though, because Astrid, I think that's how you say it, should have been the one to take out the grandmother. Like, it was so good. It feels good to get to talk about these spoilers. So hopefully if you're still here, you've read this series. When Dorian takes down Morath, that's when I was like, because I was losing my shit. I just love him. I love him so much. When Irene kills Erewhon, that death was awesome. Like, that death was so good. And then for Maeve's to be like something that was schemed on the side, I was like, spoilers are over. This is the time you should have skipped. It is safe now. You can be here. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. I gave pretty much, I think, every single book in this series 5 stars because it's a 5-star series. Even with the weaknesses I felt like this had, I still give it 5 stars because it was just like, it holds my heart. So that is the conclusion of this video. I successfully made it through 3 books that I had been stuck in the middle of for like at least 2 weeks. Kingdom of Ash, I gave 5 stars. Blew my mind. I'm sad the series is over, but even if there were some things I would have changed, the choices that she made were still very on par with the characters and how their personalities are. So that's just a me thing. I would have wanted a bigger grand finale in one of the moments is what I'm trying to say. So still 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I love this series. It's my favorite series of all time. I think my favorite book in this series is Heir of Storms and Tower of Dawn combo. Tandem reading those that was my favorite experience of the series. Highly recommend this series if you want fantasy that starts more YA and becomes more adult as it goes on. It's not super spicy. There are spice scenes throughout the series, but it's not. This is more on the plot fantasy heavy, and you grow with the characters, and it's very complex. There are a lot of full circle moments, a lot of loose ends that had to be tied, and it was fantastic. And the character building, I felt like in this series, absolutely amazing. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I did already purchase the sequel. It's on my bookshelf, so I am planning on reading that. It's called He Who Drowned the World, I believe is what it's called. I gave this a 4.5. There was some character choices made at the end of this book that dropped it down for me. It could be that this character is changing right as this book ends, and then the next book is going to continue their arc of their change, and it may not be a change that I like, which is still fine. I don't have the physical copy. I have ordered it, but it hasn't arrived yet. But I read Happy Place. I'll put it here by Emily Henry. 4.5 to 5 stars. I haven't thought about it a ton after I finished it, but it was really entertaining, pulled on my heartstrings while I was reading it. I am going to be reading more Emily Henry. I really love the way she builds her characters and her relationships, all different types of relationships in her books. So yeah, I gave it a 4.5 to 5. I think it's more towards a 4.5. We'll settle on that. I had two 4.5s and a 5 in this video. DNF'd Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater because I just wasn't feeling it, but it was a soft DNF. I put it back on my shelf. I will circle back to it. Just wasn't in the mood for it anymore, so that one was a DNF. Thank you for watching this video. I was very excited to this. It did help me get through these books, and then I immediately, of course, started reading like 3 at a time again, because that's the life of a mood reader. I hope to see you in the next video. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're taking care of yourself. Have a great day, weekend, night, evening, whatever, wherever you are in the world, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.